But so that was Little Fishy. I think we got everything with that covered.
Yep.
So then Life Flower. There's certain songs where there's a lot of things I remember about, but like this one, I remember writing it and being really proud of the ending because the whole idea was like Life Flower. I think that was the title Javen sent to me, and so I was like, I love that, but how do I like write about like what does that mean to me?
Mm-hmm.
So of course I come up with like the most obvious reference would be weed. So I'm like, okay, I got that.
Yep.
And then like I tried to a lot of the album is like I'm trying to make moments where I'm like, okay, the first is like a very happy, nostalgic moment. This is where it's like, okay, this is like the next step into my. So the whole album is like this like inner psyche, trying to like figure out who I am and tell people who I am. So Close to God is like the nice little. It's a start, and then the next one is like, okay, let's get into some serious shit and like really serious shit. Um, because the progression is hopefully we get to the point where I'm like so open that I am like who I am at this point,
Yeah.
and
And I
so
think that's cool because you were talking about with Close to God, how it's like you were like, I don't mean any of these things, like for real,
yeah,
like it's kind of like it's part of like the act, it's part of your system, to kind of like tease bits of yourself, but not really open up immediately, and I think that's really cool.
yeah, because I mean it speaks to who I am. I don't know if I'm a person that like is very open right away. I'm not really. I may have used to be, but I've become very introverted. And I think that shows in my music. I probably say more in my music than I do out in person. Realistically, that's what I used to talk.
I agree. I mean, me and probably had we had a moment where we like talked about some
Yeah,
shit,
yeah,
and it was like the first like you wasn't used to it type shit. I mean, I'm not used to talking about my feelings either though.
yeah.
But,
I would say the same for you. Your music speaks to who you are too.
yeah, I don't like talking about shit.
It's just like there's so much more I can say in a song, and it's not even intentional. I don't know. It's just what I do now is like I just like okay, I got this idea. Like, how do I talk about
Right.
masculinity? Okay, then I'll talk about walls. Like that, certain songs are ways for me to get these ideas out to someone. Because you can like, how do you talk about masculinity with other guys in a level of like where I was talking about it on walls? Like you don't really, no one does that.
Right.
You're not with your friends, and you're like, what does it mean to be a man, bro? Like, what does it mean to you? Like, no one
What
says
the homies talk
that.
about sometimes, you know.
Like, no one ever talk. But like, the
Yeah,
music
I'm
is.
not trying to play Call of Duty and
Yeah.
talk about.
You're gonna play some cyber and talk about our feelings, bro. Like, like, so like it's like each song is like it's like this like stage that I set up where I can talk about these things that are on my mind, but I can never really talk about in person. It's kind of the beauty of it. You get to talk about your whole feelings. You don't really hold back in the music, you know. Life Flower was one of those that I really like the chorus. As I look back, like that was a really like the pocket I hit on that was a very weird pocket. But then so that was Life Flower. I don't have anything else to say about that unless you do.
No, I mean, Light Flower was like one of the smoothest songs to make in general.
Yeah.
It was pretty like it wasn't the easiest song, but it was one of the easiest. The easiest one was Close to God to
Really?
make.
That's surprising. That's
Like
surprising.
like the mix and do everything and like add everything like.
So we didn't do a lot with that one.
No, not really. It was already damn near perfect.
Yeah. Thankfully that was one of the few. But I think that was one of my favorite endings to a song lyrically that I've done. Probably, I'm going to top that. I have one that's my favorite ending on this next album. But like the line at the end where it's like, where the line where at the end where I'm talking about how holding life, you're never it's so hard to remember these lines when it's been like a year. But like, it's very difficult. I don't know how people just come up with all the stuff in their head. I say something about you never appreciated life until you're until you're in a casket, essentially holding flowers when you're dead, and that's the only time you're appreciating it. That was one of my favorite moments of writing, because that was also like when you're listening to it's like whoa,
it's powerful as fuck.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, and then Preachy. That was a very.
He raps.
Hallelujah. I don't know.
And that's
That
fun.
was,
I feel like that shows kind of your fun side too, you know, just kind of
yeah,
like to goof around sometimes, you know. So like
yeah.
it's fun. I
It's
really like it.
surprisingly like that's one of the ones that got a lot of listens that I was surprised about. I'm never like surprised. I'm just surprised at the ones people choose to gravitate towards because it's not a bad thing that I'm surprised about it.
Yeah.
I'm surprised because I expect certain ones because of a certain thing, and then it never ends that way.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, shit, same, bro.
Sunshine and Rain ended up being one of my most popular on this one. I was like, I did not expect. I expected like Amy or something.
I expected that though. Bro.
I didn't. I don't know. I just see different things in myself. So I'm like, oh, that one is the best part of me.
So which song did you think was gonna be the most popular?
Fantasy for sure, and that is the one.
Okay.
If not this, it's Fantasy and then Sunshine and Rain. But I would have expected the interlude for no. I don't know why I should have expected that because that one's one of my favorite though. It's one of my.
It's
favorites.
one of my favorites
Yeah.
too, bro.
But with Preachy, back to that.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
No, about Preachy. Preachy's probably the favorite beat I made on.
Really?
Yeah.
That one's one of my. It's one of the darker ones.
It's hella fucking dark
Yeah.
and like I don't know. I love dark shit. So
I do too. That's why I love that album. Is like it's all like, besides Close to God, it's a very dark album.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's the music I love. I don't know why. It's the art that I love. Even mute movies.
Mhm.
Like.
I think it's the emotion for me, like listening to like something that's just more dark and stuff like that. Because I feel like we have a couple artists that we listen to every now and then that's like it's dark and deeper and stuff like that, and you can just tell there's a lot of emotion that goes into those artists, and especially this album too. There's a lot of emotion tied up into it too.
Definitely, yeah.
So
It's something about pain that everyone loves in a weird way. Not, and that's not like it's not as easy of a statement as like, obviously no one loves pain unless you're like a masochist or something weird.
Yeah.
But like it's the emotions and the sadness of it that people gravitate towards. That's why people are like at their lowest and they make an album and it's their best-selling album, and then people are like, why don't you make music like that? And it's because I'm fucking happy,
Right,
bro.
like-
Like I'm happy now. Why do you want me to make that music again? And like
swear.
it's a hard thing to make. Like the darkest albums are often the most honest. You know what I mean? Like that's the most emotional honesty you'll see.
Yeah.
But
It's cathartic, and you know, like a lot of people can like relate to that, like what you were saying, how it's like you can be more real in music than you feel like you can be like just talking to someone. I feel like that's something I relate to too. I definitely
Yeah.
listen to music and like really like, I don't even know, I just get like engulfed in like the feelings and everything, and really resonate with like the people who are talking and stuff. Yeah.
it's because on a song you're talking to a microphone. It's such a weird process when you're actually recording,
Mhm.
but like to me it's so goofy still. Like it's so goofy when you think of, like, if you really think about it, like I'm sitting here on my phone reciting words that I wrote on my phone into a microphone with nobody in here. Like it's so weird. It's sometimes I just think about it and how absurd it is, but like it's when you're by yourself most of the time when you're able to get the best recordings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Because you're not afraid of other people's opinions. Like I've finally gotten comfortable enough to record around other people in a confident way.
That's dope.
I recorded something the other night with Xavier and some people from this collective he's working with.
Oh,
But
okay.
like I was never comfortable recording with anyone else. Like I recorded all of the Broken Philosophic by myself. If Colleen was in the other room, that's a big if.
Hmm.
That took a while to even get comfortable with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's a weird feeling at first. But Preachy probably has the most effects, I'd say, that we went back and added to.
Yeah.
Because that one, there was like so many lines that I loved. There's like a line about synchronized soul, spirit, body, mind, and it's like a double for like Nas. I don't want to look up the lyric because I'm too lazy. But it's basically like this moment where I'm clear, like I'm cognizant that I may not be as synchronized with myself as who I'm trying to, like, as who I think I am, or that I should, like, it's hypocritical of me to say you should be yourself or you should figure out who you are when I don't know who I am yet. And there's this moment where this like lag effect, like this delay effect, where it's like me like trying to get in touch with myself. it's only the effect, but it adds so much to the song without saying it, you know.
It helps the message that you're trying
Yeah.
to get across, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but stuff like that, that took the longest weeks. I'd say more than 2 weeks, if not
Yeah,
2 weeks,
more than 2 weeks.
because that one was long. I just remember it being long because I was like, oh, it could use this, this, and this, and this, and then I'm like, okay, I'm satisfied now.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
there's just like this weird moment when you realize it's done. I don't know how to explain it. You never really know. I never really know if it's done until I hear it with effects and stuff like that. I'm like, it's done.
Yeah.
Like it's done now. But then with Earl, that was the hardest to record. And it was funny because like it's funny because I was like the whole album I'm trying to like purposefully sound sad, and
Mhm.
people kind of misunderstood the way I rapped, and they thought it was like and it could have been a lack of confidence in some aspects, but I really was trying to sound depressed because the album is depressing, right?
Right.
And so I think people misunderstood that a little bit. But as I go back, I'm like, yeah, I definitely didn't sound as confident. But that was one thing I was trying to do, was sound this sad. And in the last song, you remember my closet in Columbia with the mic stand in it?
Yeah.
Down, and I slide down in the bottom, and I think I had like 2 beers because I'm like, I need to get comfortable enough to record this. And then I sit down in like the fetal position because I'm like trying to get in the most like uncomfortable position to tell this uncomfortable story, and so then I start rapping. And that was fun to like rap because I don't think I had the flows mapped out. I just started rapping in the way that you hear it. Because sometimes I have an idea for the flow, and I never like plan out how I'm gonna hit certain drums. I just write it and it fits over it. But with that one, it was like I started taking more pauses, and it added this like really nice effect to it for the mood.
That's like interesting to hear about your process and everything. Like how you said you had to like get down in a fetal position and like in a really uncomfy position to tell an uncomfy story. Cause like that's so relatable because I do acting and everything, and it's like we have to like take time to get into character and feel that. So it's really cool to
Right.
hear like feel your like music persona come over you and stuff. That's really awesome.
Yeah, it was almost like method acting in a way.
Yeah.
It was like, how can I like make myself super depressed? I'll just drink a few blue moons and just
let me down the blue moon.
It was probably something I didn't find blue moon at day yet, so it was probably something like some fucking Corona before the coronavirus hit. um, but but yeah, that was a fun one to record. Well, I don't think it was a fun one to record, but it was like
But it's a funny story.
is a
though,
funny
like-
story of how I did that. And then how that album ends, because this is the end of the video. So the album ends like it ends with me getting the most personal. Like, I don't think I've ever told anyone that about how I feel on that one ever to anyone. So that was the first time probably Colleen's heard me talk about stuff like that, right? So it is the first time I'm being super open, no holds bars, nothing. I'm just telling you these dark thoughts, right? And so that one I remember as soon as I hit record and I listened to it, I'm like, this is amazing. Like I've never written something that cathartic, and it didn't feel cathartic until I heard it. That was the weird part. I wrote it and I felt so shitty still. Like I was like, this is awful. And then I recorded, I'm like, this is awful. And then I'm like, I listened to it, I'm like, oh my God, it felt amazing. It felt like this weight that was on my chest the whole time making that song was finally off.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. It's not like it's something you would never tell anyone, but it was enough to feel like, oh my God, I feel like it's weird listening to yourself rap. It's a weird, I don't know how to explain it. It's almost like I disassociate in a way. Like I'm like, this doesn't feel like me telling this. So I'm like listening to someone else tell it, and I'm like, oh, that feels really nice. Like I know what you mean.
Right.
But that was probably the most like cathartic song of actually finishing. That one felt the best to finish, for sure.
And I mean, I feel like the whole ending with Earl too is like it's kind of like you told something that you didn't want to tell
Yeah.
And then like the drums and shit start to get like I said, tribal and shit, kind of like a celebration of you like
Mm.
telling something dark. I mean, it's twisted in a way, but
Yeah. No.
uh, it definitely, I would feel like it definitely like is the perfect ending to all to everything that goes on through the album, and then with the last song, and he was like, "Yo,"
Yeah.
and it's like, "Okay,
It's like you can finally
now
breathe.
let's yeah exactly like you could breathe, you could dance type shit."
Yeah.
Fuck yeah,
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. I was just gonna say there's like some basically ignore that. That was a trash that word. There's like I was just gonna say that like I feel like there's a really like amazing balance to the darkness and like like the little bit of irony in there and everything too. I really feel like it's beautifully balanced and with the mixing and the lyrics and everything, it's just like balance is like the key I feel like to that album, and I feel like that's like very powerful, especially
Yeah.
like how you were saying how it's like with the drums and everything, even though it's a really dark song and you're being as open, everything, and you're like ending the song like the album with that, it's still kind of this like I guess like and so it goes,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
keep going on, you bring back that idea of like
yo,
you know it's just another day, and you just got to keep going with it. And so I think that that's what's beautiful about the balance of the
Yeah.
album too.
I
Thank
agree.
you. Definitely.
that's
Because
dope.
when I listen to it, I actually listen to SSDD more than I've listened to the Broken Philosophic. Probably because like it's a longer album and
Yeah,
there's more to it, and it's also a lighter album. It's easier to digest. That
yeah,
if I listen to the Broken Philosophic all the time, you should check up on me because that's a problem. um, but like that album when it came out, I remember like even still when I listen to it, some days I'll like put it on because I want to hear a different like side of me than I've released.
hmm
Because I like listening to my own music a lot. It's kind of silly, but I love it. It's because it's like the music I would want to hear. That's the kind of the way I make music. Is I want to make music what that I would want to listen to if it wasn't me.
yeah,
If it was fucking like Kendrick making this, I would love it. So that's like I love listening to my music because of that. In that album, it's hard because I start holding my breath without realizing it around Preachy because it gets so much more darker. Because I feel like the first three are like light enough to where you can like still breathe and you're like, okay, I'm still on board.
yeah,
Awesome. Then it gets you hit Preachy and it's like, this is really hard to handle. And so I realize every time I listen to it, I almost hold my breath a little bit from Preachy to Earl, especially at Earl. That's the lowest point of the album. Even still, I do that. I can't explain why. I think it's just an emotional thing. Like I'm like, oh man, this is it. This is the part. Um, I don't realize I'm doing it though until I'm like I breathe at the end. It's over. And it's so like I don't even think about it, but it's cool. I like that I can have that effect over myself
yeah.
even when I
No,
don't realize it. That's a good sign, I guess.
that's sick.
But yeah, that's all that I had planned to talk about.
Wait,
So
question really fast. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
what's up?
So the broken philosophic, the N is in
Yeah.
parentheses. Could you talk about like the name a little bit, like the
Oh
title?
yeah, I should have wrote down the title. I didn't even think about that. So originally it was. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. That's
Okay.
awesome. That was a good question.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so we originally had it the Broken Philosophic with no parentheses. I was just gonna title it. I think I can't remember if I was gonna title it the Broken Philosophic or the Broke Philosophic. I think it was broken from the start. I think it was just with no parentheses and
Yeah, it
N.
was broken from the start.
Yeah, but I realized that I like the thing I do with or I try to do with my music is I try to like give some autonomy to the listener to like have it up to interpretation. Like in all the albums I've made, there's always like this like deeper point that I'm trying to make that like with this next one it's a lot more evident with the Adam Wayne. I'm trying to make like this hero anti-hero character, but it's up to the listener to determine whether it's a hero or a villain or if it's neither or whatever like it's up to you really. It's almost like a choose your own adventure. I try to do that with like everything I do. So that was what I was trying to do. I was trying to like give some autonomy to like, is it fit, like am I physically like emotionally broken, or I could financially
Oh yeah,
too,
or
because I
financially.
was both. So it was more of like a artistic and like autonomous decision. Like it's really whatever you think it fits best in that sense.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's I was just curious about that ever since, I first like found your album and everything. I was like, wow, like why is the N in parentheses?
Yeah.
I read it as the broken philosophic, but then I thought I was like, oh wait, broke in philosophic. Oh.
Yeah, thank you.
Clever.
Yeah. I definitely have it in a certain way that I think of it, but like I said, I would like to give it up to interpretation. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah, that's awesome.
yeah, that's all I got. I think.
Okay.
It's been very
That was really good.
It's been very nice to hear you guys talk about it and stuff like that, and give like the album like in a sort of different light than I guess the purpose of this video is to do that, to give the album of a just like in your perspective and stuff like that. Maybe people missed and we'll go back and listen to and stuff like that, and just for people to know like what it's really about and like how you've put your life into this and stuff like that. It's been really nice.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like I've never had an opportunity to tell anyone besides Javen and like Davion and his brothers. They all know basically everything I put into my albums. I've told them. I never really tell anyone else. And Colleen would know. Colleen knows, but it's harder to talk music as much as I talk about it with someone who makes music.
Yeah.
So they know everything I've done in like the ulterior motives and the meanings behind everything. They know. But I've never been able to tell anyone else because there's never really a time or place for it. It's not like, hey, you want to tell me about your music, dude?
Right.
Like, who the fuck does that? No one's gonna ask.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be able to get all these thoughts I've had on for a year plus, over a year. I'm glad I could finally tell people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.